I was in the kitchen cooking a pot of beans when my son, Patrick, walked into the house yelling on the phone. He was 34 years old but still lived with me. He claimed he stayed to take care of me, but I knew the truth: he couldn't afford to live on his own. That day he was furious because his ex-wife, Rebecca, still hadn't received the child support payment for my 9-year-old grandson, Andrew. When I turned off the stove and asked if he wanted lunch, Patrick exploded. "You filthy old woman, can't you see I'm on the phone?" Then something happened that left me frozen. He spit right in my face. The drops rolled down my cheek while he kept screaming, "You're nothing but trouble. You should just sit in your corner and stay quiet." I wiped my face with my apron, swallowed my humiliation, and said nothing. "My name is Nancy. I'm 67 years old, and I've always been strong. I raised Patrick alone after my husband, Joseph, left when Patrick was 6. I worked as a seamstress for 38 years to give my son a decent life. I bought this small house in a modest neighborhood in Ohio with every dollar I could save, dreaming it would be a home filled with love and respect. But for the past 3 years, ever since Patrick's divorce and his move back in, this house has turned into hell. He treats me like a maid. He yells at me in front of Andrew, and I stay silent because of that child. That afternoon, after Patrick left to run errands and Andrew stayed with me, I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection, my face still wet from the insult. Something inside me stirred. Andrew hugged me and whispered, "Grandma, why does Dad keep yelling at you?" That innocent question cut through me like a knife. I realized Andrew was growing up thinking disrespecting women, especially older women, was normal. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen with a cup of chamomile tea, finally seeing things clearly. Patrick wasn't here to help me. He was using me. The house was in my name. The bills were paid with my small pension, and I took care of Andrew whenever Patrick went job hunting. But what he didn't know was that I had more control over my life than he thought. And things were about to change. The next morning was gray, matching the heaviness inside me. Patrick woke up with his usual scowl and started complaining while I made coffee. "What kind of coffee is this? It's too strong. You can't do anything right anymore." He didn't even look at me, his eyes glued to his phone. Andrew ran into the kitchen wearing his wrinkled school uniform. When I bent down to fix his collar, he whispered, "Grandma, I dreamed we moved somewhere else and were happier." My heart tightened. A 9-year-old shouldn't feel the tension that filled this house. While they ate breakfast, I stood near the stove watching the same scene I saw every morning. Patrick scrolling on his phone, ignoring his son trying to talk about school. "Dad," my teacher said, "we're making a family tree." Andrew said excitedly, "Andrew, I'm busy." Patrick replied without even looking up. Andrew went silent, spoon frozen midair. My heart broke. Patrick had completely lost touch with what mattered most, his own child. After dropping Andrew off at school, I came home to find Patrick in my bedroom, rummaging through my drawers while talking on the phone. "Yeah, Carla, the house is in a great location," he said. "Old people always make things dramatic. Once she's in a nursing home, I'll finally get to remodel this place." He saw me standing there but didn't even flinch, continuing as if I were invisible. "This area's value is going up fast. In a few years, the place will be worth twice as much." That afternoon, sitting in the same chair where I'd spent decades sewing to support him, I realized it was time to stop being the silent victim of my own life. A few weeks later, I saw more clearly how my family truly viewed me. Patrick invited his sister, Linda, for dinner. I was happy, thinking we'd have a peaceful family meal. I cooked the honey-glazed chicken they both used to love as kids. I set the table with my nicest dishes and wore the navy blue dress Joseph used to say looked beautiful on me. But when Linda arrived, the two of them closed the door to talk privately. From the sink, I caught fragments of their conversation that made my blood run cold. "Patrick, I get it," Linda said with that familiar condescending tone. "Look at me, I've got my husband. I don't have to take care of Mom every day. You've done your part. She's lived her life. Now it's your turn to live yours." They laughed. Then Patrick said, "Sometimes I feel like I live in a museum. I can't move a thing, can't change anything, always have to be grateful because it's her house. I feel like a teenager being monitored." "Exactly," Linda replied. "Besides, how long can she live anyway? People reach 90 these days. Can you handle another 20 years of this?" My hands shook as I washed the same plate over and over. The two children I had raised with all my love were talking about me like I was a burden. I wasn't paranoid, they truly saw me as an obstacle. When they came out and sat at the table, they put on their fake smiles. "Mom, the chicken smells amazing," Patrick said, forcing a grin. "No one makes chicken like you, Nancy," Linda added while holding Andrew. But I had already seen their real faces. In the days that followed, I noticed things I had ignored before. When Patrick brought friends home, he introduced me as if I were just someone renting a room. When Andrew asked me to tell him a story, Patrick interrupted. "Let Grandma rest, Andrew. She's too old to play with you." Since when did caring for my grandson become a burden? Since when did age mean I was unworthy of love? One morning, while hanging laundry outside, I overheard Patrick talking to our neighbor about nursing homes. "Mrs. Parker, the one up north is great. My cousin put his mother-in-law there, amazing care. We have to think about these things, can't be selfish with our parents." I couldn't hear the neighbor's reply, but I saw Patrick nod and smile. When I walked inside, he had just hung up and acted as if nothing had happened. "Mom, you should exercise more. Maybe join a senior yoga class?" His tone sounded caring, but I knew it was manipulation. That afternoon, while Patrick went to pick up Andrew, I decided to go through my important papers. It had been years since I'd checked them, assuming everything was fine. But when I opened the safe, my heart froze. Papers were shuffled, copies made, and new documents I didn't remember signing, including one granting Patrick access to my bank account in case of an emergency. I didn't remember signing it, but my signature was there. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I realized Patrick had been quietly setting things up to control my life. That night at dinner, I looked at them differently. Patrick ate while scrolling his phone. Andrew talked about his school day, and I forced a smile even though my mind was spinning. "Grandma, are you okay? You look sad," Andrew asked softly. "I'm fine, just a little tired," I said, stroking his dark hair. Patrick looked up briefly and said, "Mom, if you're tired, go see a doctor. At your age, anything can be serious." There was no concern in his voice, only a wish that I'd actually be sick so he could justify his plan. The next day, a Saturday, Patrick said he'd be out all day with friends. "Mom, watch Andrew for me, okay? You know I need to relax." It wasn't a request, it was a command. I nodded, like I always had, but something inside me had shifted. While he sang along to pop songs and put on makeup, I watched every move. He used expensive cosmetics. I didn't know how he could afford. He had new clothes every week. After he left and Andrew was watching cartoons, I checked my bank account. What I saw took my breath away. Patrick had been accessing my main account for 6 months, withdrawing small amounts regularly, 200 here, 300 there, each time with a reasonable excuse. "Mom, it's for Andrew's medicine. The washing machine broke. The car needs urgent maintenance." But together, those withdrawals added up to almost half my pension each month. Worse, he had started accessing the savings account I'd set aside for Andrew's college fund. That account held about $150,000, money I had saved from years of overtime. Patrick had withdrawn nearly $40,000 without asking me. I sat frozen in front of the computer, sick to my stomach, not just because of the money, but because of the betrayal, the disrespect, the deceit from someone who claimed to love me. Andrew ran into the room. "Grandma, can you make me a quesadilla?" His cheerful voice clashed with the bitterness in my heart. I picked him up, kissed his forehead, and made his favorite cheesy quesadillas with a light green salsa. As he ate happily, I made a decision that would change everything. I could no longer be the submissive grandmother everyone took advantage of. I was 67, but my mind was sharper than ever. It was time they learned what it felt like to lose someone who truly loved them. In the following days, I kept my usual routine, but inside I was completely different. Every morning I woke up with a determination I hadn't felt in years. When Patrick yelled, I simply nodded and went on with my chores. When he asked for money, I gave it without question. But every afternoon, when he was out and Andrew was at school, I quietly made important phone calls. First, I called my cousin in Texas and told him everything. He listened and said something I'll never forget. "Nancy, respect isn't something you beg for. If someone won't give it, they don't deserve it either." Then I called my lawyer, Mr. Thomas, who had helped me buy this house. I explained the documents I found, and he confirmed something that sent chills down my spine. Patrick had made me sign a broad power of attorney, giving him control over almost all my assets. If he could prove I was mentally unfit. "Mrs. Nancy," he said seriously, "this happens more often than you think. But you have every right to revoke it. You're completely competent." That afternoon, I left his office with a new folder of documents and a plan that would shake the life Patrick thought he controlled. On Friday evening, Patrick came home with news that made my heart turn cold. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he said while pouring himself a glass of water. "I've been thinking about your health, and I believe it's time we consider other options for your care." I sat down, pretending not to understand. "What do you mean, Patrick?" I asked softly. "Places with professional staff for seniors. You'd have friends your age, activities, doctors watching over you. You're always so lonely here." The irony. He barely spent 4 hours a day at home, the rest out with friends, shopping, or lying on the couch watching TV. I answered calmly, "This is my home. I bought it, I take care of it, and I've been happy here for 20 years. He sighed, as if speaking to a stubborn child. "Mom, I know you're attached, but you can't live alone. What if you fall? What if you forget to turn off the stove? I just can't have peace of mind." His words sounded caring, but I knew my son. I knew when he was sincere and when he was performing. Then he added, "Selling the house would give us a big sum. I could manage it for you to make sure you're taken care of properly." That night, after tucking Andrew into bed, I lay awake connecting the dots. His stories about old people getting into accidents, his complaints about how expensive it was to keep a house, his casual mentions of nursing homes as luxury resorts. It had all been a calculated plan. On Monday morning, while Patrick was still asleep after a late night out, I left the house with my best purse and every important document. My first stop was the bank. I asked to see the manager. After I explained the unauthorized withdrawals, he immediately froze Patrick's access to all my accounts. "You have the right to protect your assets," he said. "Your son cannot withdraw from your grandson's account." I signed new forms, changed every password, and felt like I had just reclaimed my financial freedom. My second stop was Mr. Thomas's law office. I signed papers officially revoking Patrick's power of attorney. Not only that, we created a new will. In the old one, Patrick inherited everything. In the new one, all my assets were placed into a trust for Andrew, managed by an under-4 independent guardian. Until he turned 25, Patrick would not get a single dollar. "Mr. Thomas," I said firmly, "I want my grandson to have a decent future, not one controlled by someone who doesn't appreciate what they have." When I finished signing, I felt lighter than I had in years. But my plan was only beginning. That afternoon, Patrick thought I was napping as usual. Meanwhile, I contacted a discreet real estate agency. The appraisal shocked me. The property was worth over $2.8 million, far more than Patrick imagined. The area had indeed gone up in value, but I knew exactly what my home was worth. The agent said several buyers were ready to close within 3 weeks. "Are you sure, ma'am?" he asked nervously. "I'm 67, I replied. "I know exactly what I'm doing. My son wants the house but not me. Now he'll learn the difference." That week, I watched Patrick with new eyes. I saw him mocking older women on TV, snapping at Andrew, spending my money on luxury items, while complaining about the price of my medicine. "Mom, that $200 prescription is too expensive. Find something cheaper," he said while carrying a designer shopping bag. Midweek, Patrick brought home a surprise. He had scheduled a geriatric checkup for me. "Mom, at your age, you need regular exams." I went with him. But as soon as we entered the doctor's office, I realized this appointment wasn't normal. Patrick tried to portray me as forgetful, confused. The doctor asked odd questions, but I answered each one clearly. Patrick kept interrupting. "She forgets dates sometimes, misplaces her keys." It was obvious he was trying to create a false impression. When we left the clinic, he was silent, frustrated that the doctor hadn't found a single thing wrong with me. On the drive home, he said, "Mom, you must have been nervous. You didn't sound like yourself." How ridiculous. He was trying to convince me that I was wrong, even though I had just proven the opposite. "Patrick," I said calmly, "my mind is perfectly clear." He didn't respond, just tightened his grip on the steering wheel. That night was the last dinner I would ever have with them in my own house. Patrick made a few quick sandwiches and said he had plans. Andrew was excited, talking about his science project. "Grandma, I made a real volcano. Will you help me with it?" "Of course." I smiled. Patrick rolled his eyes. "Andrew, your grandma's too old to bend over and do stuff like that. Ask your Aunt Linda." But Andrew shook his head. "I want Grandma to help." "I said no," Patrick barked. Andrew went silent, his eyes filling with tears. In that moment, I knew things had gone too far. It wasn't just about the money or the house anymore. Patrick was poisoning my bond with Andrew, teaching him that older people didn't deserve respect. That night, after helping Andrew finish his volcano, I made the most important decision of my life. I stayed up almost until dawn writing 3 letters, one to Andrew, explaining that everything I was about to do came from love, one to Patrick, telling him exactly what I knew and what would happen next, and one to myself listing all the reasons I deserved respect, all the times I had loved deeply, all the sacrifices I had made, and all the moments I had stayed silent when I should have spoken up. I wrote until my hands ached, until my tears ran dry, until I finally felt at peace. When the sky was still dark, I packed a small suitcase with only what truly mattered. A few favorite outfits, my mother's jewelry, photos of Andrew, and the small framed image of the Virgin Mary I had carried all my life. I placed the 3 letters on the kitchen table next to my house keys and a folder containing all the documents for the sale of the house. The sale would be finalized in 15 days. I also left Andrew's savings book with a note explaining that all the money belonged to him and that I had protected it from Patrick's quiet theft. When I closed the door behind me for the last time, I didn't feel sad. I felt free. For months, I had been treated like an old piece of furniture in my own home, something to be tolerated until they figured out how to get rid of it. Patrick wanted me gone so he could claim everything I built, so I decided to give him exactly what he wanted, my disappearance, but not the prize he expected. The taxi took me to the bus station, away from that house and from the years I had spent swallowing humiliation. When the driver asked if I was okay because he saw tears in my eyes, I smiled and said, "I'm perfectly fine, son. I really am." As the bus rolled toward Texas and the scenery blurred outside the window, I thought about what Patrick would find when he woke up, the letters detailing every wrong he had done, the folder showing that the house was no longer his free ride, the bank records exposing how he had stolen from Andrew's savings, and most of all my complete absence. No shouting, no pleading, no drama, only the silence of a woman who had finally understood that dignity mattered more than clinging to a family that had already rotted from the inside. Patrick had often told me I was a burden that I just got in the way and should disappear. Well, he got his wish. But what he never imagined was that when I left, I would take everything of real value with me. When the bus reached Texas in the morning, my cousin Arthur was waiting at the station, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Nancy, you look different," he said, taking my suitcase. "You look lighter." He was right. I didn't have to tiptoe around my own home. His wife, Karen, hugged me tightly. "Stay as long as you need. This house is always open for you." That warmth nearly brought me to tears. It had been so long since I'd felt what family truly meant. They gave me a small, tidy guest room with a window facing a bright garden. During my first days in Texas, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Patrick called every hour. At first panicked, then angry, then begging. I only listened to the messages I never answered. "Mom, you've lost your mind. You can't sell the house without asking me," he screamed in one. The next message was softer. "Mom, if I said something that hurt you, I'm sorry, but please don't punish Andrew. He needs you." Then came the threats. "What you're doing is illegal. I'll sue to stop the sale." Each message proved I was right. No real apology, no accountability, just fear of losing what he thought was his. On the 3rd day, I received a call from Mr. Thomas, my lawyer. "Mrs. Nancy, your son came to my office with another attorney. They're trying to block the house sale, claiming you're mentally incompetent." I chuckled. "Mr. Thomas, please show them all the medical reports you requested from me." "I already did, ma'am. The doctor confirmed you are completely sound of mind. They have no legal basis. The sale will proceed as planned." I hung up feeling a satisfaction I hadn't known in years. Patrick had completely underestimated his poor old mother. One afternoon, while I was helping Karen prepare dinner, my phone rang. It was Andrew crying, "Grandma, why did you leave? Mom said you're mad at me." His trembling voice made my own hands shake. "Never, sweetheart. I love you more than anything." "Then why won't you come back? I miss you helping me with homework." Karen noticed my tears and placed her hand gently on my shoulder. "Andrew, sometimes grown-ups have to do really hard things to protect the people they love. When will you come back?" The question broke my heart. "I don't know, honey, but you'll always be the most important person to me." After hanging up, I went to my room and cried, harder than I had in years. Not out of sadness, but out of anger. Anger at Patrick for using his son to manipulate me. Anger that Andrew had to suffer because of his mother's selfishness. Anger that after everything I had sacrificed, Patrick still couldn't see that I left to protect his own child. Karen knocked softly. "Nancy, may I come in?" She brought a cup of hot tea and sat beside me. "My sister went through something similar with her son. It hurts now, but you did the right thing." That night, lying on the new bed, I thought about everything. I remembered Joseph, the husband who left when Patrick was 6 because he couldn't handle fatherhood. I remembered the nights I stayed up until 3 a.m. sewing to pay rent on a tiny apartment in the working-class district. Patrick had been such a sweet boy then, always asking when his father would come back. I used to lie and say, "Soon, honey," because I didn't have the courage to tell him we'd been abandoned. I remembered when Patrick turned 15. I saved for 2 years to throw him a beautiful birthday party, rented a small hall, bought him a little suit that made him look like a young gentleman. That day, I felt every sacrifice had been worth it. "Thanks, Mom," he had said, hugging me tight. "You're the best mom ever." Those words once healed every wound. And yet, that same boy had once spat in my face. The next day, Arthur invited me for a walk around town. It had been so long since I'd taken a stroll without worrying about cooking or cleaning. We sat eating ice cream in the plaza, watching people pass by. Arthur asked, "Nancy, when was the last time you did something just because you wanted to?" I went quiet. I couldn't remember. My whole life had revolved around Patrick, then Andrew. But myself? I was nothing. I told Arthur, "I want to call my old friend Rose. We used to work together at the sewing factory." When I called and told her what had happened, she said right away, "Nancy, I'm glad you finally woke up. I always knew Patrick was taking advantage of you." She invited me to visit her in California. "I have a clothing shop here. You could help out a bit if you'd like. You need to meet new people, change your surroundings." That call made me realize how many opportunities I had turned down because of Patrick trips, joys, chances to live freely. I remembered when my best friend Teresa invited me on a cruise for her birthday. I refused because I couldn't leave Patrick and Andrew alone. But the truth was, Patrick only worked 4 hours a day, the rest he spent out with friends or at the gym. I had missed a dream trip just to take care of a grown man who never really needed me. On Saturday morning, while we were having breakfast on the porch, my phone rang again. It was Linda, Patrick's sister, her voice nervous. "Mom, where are you? Patrick's been looking everywhere for you." "I'm fine, Linda. Tell him to calm down. But Andrew's really sad. He keeps asking for you." "Linda," I said clearly, "Andrew is sad because his mother is using his feelings. Instead of telling him the truth, she's using his pain to guilt me into coming back." Linda went silent for a few seconds, then said, "Mom, Patrick's really panicking. He never thought you'd actually do this." "Of course not," I replied. "He never thought I'd stand up for myself. That's his biggest mistake." After hanging up, Arthur asked me a question that left me speechless. "Nancy, do you think Patrick doesn't realize he's hurting you, or does he know and just not care?" His words hit me hard. I had avoided that thought for years. I'd always made excuses for him: the divorce, the stress, raising a child alone. But that morning, I remembered every flash in his eyes when he saw me in pain and how he seemed to enjoy it. "Arthur," I finally said, "I think Patrick knows exactly what he's doing, and I think he likes it." Saying it out loud felt like lifting a weight I'd carried for decades. For years I'd told myself I was too sensitive, that I was overreacting. But the truth was simpler and crueler. My son had enjoyed humiliating me because it made him feel powerful, grown up, in control. The saddest part, I added, was that I had let him because I was afraid of losing his love. But now I realized that love had never really existed. That afternoon, I got a call from Mr. Thomas with news that lifted a burden off my heart. "Mrs. Nancy, the house sale is complete. The funds are in your new account. What should I do with the remaining items in the house?" "Everything there belongs to Patrick and Andrew," I replied. "I've already taken what truly matters to me. What about the furniture? Some pieces clearly belong to you. Leave them. Consider it my final gift." When I hung up, Arthur noticed me smiling. "Good news?" "The best. I no longer own a house in Ohio, and I've never felt freer in my life." That night, Karen made my favorite meal, spicy chicken with American-style red rice. While we ate, she told me about a friend named Elaine who had gone through something similar. Elaine had 3 children who treated her terribly until the day she disappeared and moved in with her sister in Florida. Her children panicked, searching for her everywhere, but when they finally found her, she already had a new job, new friends, and even a man courting her. "My kids used to say I was a burden," Elaine told them. "Now they can see what life is like without that burden." I couldn't help but laugh. "How did that end?" I asked. At first, they were furious. But after a few months, they got down on their knees and apologized. But Elaine chose her new life. On Sunday morning, while I was watering the backyard plants, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I answered. "Mrs. Nancy? This is Monica, Andrew's teacher." My heart tightened instantly. "How's my grandson?" "He's very sad. He keeps asking about you. He says you left because he did something wrong. His mother told him you were sick, but Andrew insists you're healthy and that you left because you were angry at him." Patrick's lies knew no limits. "Miss Monica," I said firmly, "Andrew didn't do anything wrong. I had to leave a very difficult situation, but it has nothing to do with him. Could you please write him a letter? He needs to hear that from you." That afternoon, I sat down to write the hardest letter of my life. I explained to Andrew in words a child could understand that sometimes adults have to make difficult choices, that I loved him more than anything in the world, but I needed to be in a place where I was treated with respect. I told him that when he was older, he would understand, and that none of it was his fault. The next day, Mr. Thomas, my lawyer, called with surprising news. "Mrs. Nancy, your son Patrick is trying to locate you. He even hired a private investigator." The news made me uneasy. "Is that legal?" I asked. "He can look, but you're a competent adult. You're not obligated to reveal your location or meet with anyone you don't wish to see. That afternoon, I told Arthur about my worries. Nancy, if you want to feel safer, stay here as long as you need, he said. This city is big, and you haven't done anything wrong. You just left your own home. During those weeks in Texas, I started rediscovering who I was. No longer the mother who endured everything. I woke up when I wanted to, not when someone else needed me. I read the entire newspaper at breakfast instead of rushing through it while preparing lunch. In the afternoons, I walked through the city, visited museums, sat in cafes, sipping cappuccinos, and watched people pass by. It was strange to realize how many joys I had lost just to please a son who never appreciated them. One morning, while I was sitting in the garden enjoying the sunlight, Karen sat beside me with a serious look. Nancy, I need to tell you something. Yesterday, a young woman came asking about you. She said she was conducting market research, but I'm pretty sure she was someone Patrick hired. My heart began to race. What did you tell her? I said I'd never heard of anyone named Nancy Harris, but I think it's time you decide, are you going to keep hiding forever, or face things? Karen was right. I'd been running for weeks, but I couldn't run forever. That night, I called my old friend Rose in California and accepted her job offer. Rose, is your invitation still open? Of course. When can you come? Next week. California was farther from all the chaos, and I'd have work to keep me independent. I wasn't planning to live off the house sale. I wanted to save that money for Andrew's future. I wanted to prove to myself and to Patrick that at 67, I could still start over. Before leaving Texas, I decided to do what I had avoided for so long, call Patrick directly. I called early in the morning, knowing he'd be home. Mom, is that you? His voice was frantic. Yes, Patrick, it's me. Thank God, where are you? Are you okay? I'll come get you right now. Patrick, I'm not going to tell you where I am, and I'm not coming back. Mom, what are you talking about? This is ridiculous. We're family. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me. You stole money. You planned to send me to a nursing home. You humiliated me in front of my grandson. Mom, I never... Don't interrupt me. You're going to listen. My voice was calm and steady. I sold the house because I found out you were stealing from Andrew's account. I changed my will because I discovered you were planning to take my assets. I left because you spat in my face and called me a filthy old woman. Do you need me to remind you of anything else? There was a long silence on the other end. Mom, I was just stressed. The divorce? The money? Patrick, stress doesn't justify cruelty, and you're not struggling. You lived in my house for free, spent my money, and only worked part-time. What about Andrew? Are you punishing him for my mistakes? That familiar question, the same emotional trick. Patrick, I'm not punishing Andrew. I'm teaching him that actions have consequences. When you hurt the people who love you, you can lose them forever. Mom, please come back. I swear I'll change. Patrick, you've been promising that for years, but the only thing you've done consistently is insult me. You said I was a burden and should leave. Well, you got what you wanted. When I hung up, my hands were trembling, but not from fear, from relief. Karen came over and hugged me. Nancy, you did the right thing. You spoke like a woman who knows her worth. That afternoon, I packed my things to leave for California. I didn't know what awaited me, but the unknown felt exciting instead of terrifying. The day before I left, I received an unexpected call. It was Linda, but this time her voice sounded different. "Mom, I need to tell you something important." "Go ahead." Patrick told me everything. About Andrew's money, the power of attorney, the spitting. "Mom, I didn't know it was that bad." "Linda, your brother's been treating me that way for years. This didn't just start now." "I know. And I'm sorry I used to think you were exaggerating. But now I see how much you've endured. I want to apologize. And I understand why you left. I'm not sure I'd have the courage you did." That call made me realize something important. For years, everyone had known how badly Patrick treated me, but no one had ever stood up for me. It was easier for them to think I was too sensitive than to face the truth. Before hanging up, I said, "Linda, I hope this helps you treat your own mother better. Because children who watch people mistreat their grandmothers grow up believing it's normal to mistreat their mothers too." "You're right, Mom. I'll think about that a lot." On the morning I left Texas for California, I stood at the bus station, looking back one last time, not at the station itself, but at the entire chapter of my life I was closing. I had once been the perfect mother, the perfect grandmother, the woman who put everyone before herself, and in the end, I was spat on by the very son I loved most. But that humiliation woke me from a long, bitter sleep. It brought me back to myself at the moment I stepped onto that bus bound for California. I wasn't just carrying a suitcase of clothes. I carried the awakening of a woman who had finally learned that loving yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. When I arrived in California on a Tuesday afternoon, I saw Rose waiting at the station with a smile I hadn't seen in years. "Nancy, you look different," she said. "Like you're becoming yourself again." She was right. During those 5 hours from Texas, I felt every mile take me farther from Patrick and from the broken version of myself I had become. Rose took me to her house in a quiet, tree-filled neighborhood that reminded me of the old America, when neighbors knew each other and problems were solved with kindness, not shouting. The room she prepared for me was small but cozy, with a window overlooking a garden full of purple flowers. "Nancy, this is your home now. Next week I'll take you to see the shop. Working again will do you good." That night, as I unpacked my suitcase for the third time in a month, I realized something important. Each time I traveled, I brought fewer belongings but carried more confidence. I no longer needed the things I once thought defined me. The real me was slowly returning. Rose's clothing store was called Elegant and Timeless, specializing in fashion for women over 50. "Nancy," she explained as she showed me around, "you have no idea how many women our age want to look beautiful but can't find clothes that fit who they are. We don't sell teenage trends or outdated styles here, we sell real elegance." I was thrilled as I looked at the finely tailored dresses, well-made blouses, and elegant accessories. "So what will I be doing?" I asked. "You'll help customers choose outfits. Use your life experience to encourage them. Women our age aren't just buying clothes, they're buying back their confidence." My first day of work was a turning point. Around 10 a.m., a woman in her 60s walked in, well-dressed but clearly sad. "I need something to wear to a wedding," she said without enthusiasm. "A happy event, I hope?" I asked, as I led her to the formal wear section. "It's my oldest son's wedding, but his fiancée doesn't want me there." The invitation was out of obligation. I feel like an outsider. Her story broke my heart because I saw my own pain in her eyes. "What's your name?" I asked. "Margaret." "Margaret, you are not an outsider anywhere. You're the groom's mother. Let's find you a beautiful dress so you can show up the way you deserve." It took us nearly an hour, but we found a navy blue dress, elegant, flattering, not overdone. When she tried it on and looked in the mirror, her whole face changed. "Is that really me?" "It's been you all along," I said softly. "You just needed the right dress to let it show." When she left the store smiling, Rose looked at me and said, "Nancy, you have a gift. You're not just selling clothes, you're giving women their dignity back." That afternoon, I realized that helping other women rediscover their worth was also helping me heal my own heart. In the first few weeks in California, I built a new rhythm full of energy. I woke up early, not because someone called me, but because I wanted to start my day. I enjoyed slow breakfasts, reading the news. I walked to the store, worked until evening, came home to read or watch movies. On weekends, I explored the city, visited museums, wandered through art districts, lit candles in churches. I was amazed to realize I had interests, opinions, and an independent life I had forgotten existed. One Saturday morning, while I was having breakfast at a cafe downtown, my phone rang. It was a California number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered, "Mrs. Nancy Harris?" "Yes, this is she. I'm Mr. Martin from Andrew's school. I'm sorry to call unexpectedly, but we need to discuss your grandson." My heart went cold. "Is Andrew okay?" "He's physically fine, but his emotional state is worrying. Since you left, he's been withdrawn, quiet, crying often. Yesterday, he said something that really concerned us." "What did he say?" "He said that if he had never been born, you would still be happy with his mother." I felt like I was breaking apart. "No, that's not true. Andrew isn't to blame for anything." "We know," the teacher said gently, "but he's confused. His mother tells him one thing, and he believes something different about you. Could you come talk to him? You don't have to move back in, just help him understand." The request put me in an impossible position. I wanted to see Andrew more than anything, but I knew Patrick would use that visit to manipulate me again. That afternoon, I called my lawyer, Mr. Thomas, for advice. What if I go to see Andrew and Patrick tries to stop me from leaving? "Mrs. Nancy, you're a free person. No one can detain you against your will. If you'd like, I can come with you to make sure everything stays within the law. And if Patrick refuses to let me see Andrew, you're his grandmother. You have every right to see him, especially since the school itself is requesting it." I thought about it for several days. Rose told me I should go. "Nancy, that boy needs you, and you need to make sure he's okay." But when I called back to Texas, Karen urged caution. "Nancy, be careful. Patrick might use Andrew to pull you back in." They were both right. But in the end, my love for Andrew outweighed every fear. I decided to fly out for one day to see my grandson. On Friday morning, I boarded the first flight I'd taken alone in years. That small taste of freedom made me feel stronger. Mr. Thomas picked me up at the airport and drove me to the school. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I've never been more ready," I said firmly. The principal greeted us and explained the situation in more detail. When they brought Andrew into the room, my heart ached. He looked thinner, with dark circles under his eyes. The moment he saw me, he burst into tears and ran to hug me. "Grandma, you're not mad at me anymore." "I was never mad at you, Andrew. Never. But you left without saying goodbye." I lifted his chin gently. "Andrew, sometimes adults have to do hard things. I left because I wasn't being treated kindly at home. But that has nothing to do with you. You're the one thing I love the most. Then why won't you come back? Did you see how your father talks to me? He nodded slowly. Yes, it scares me. That's why I can't live there. No one should be yelled at or humiliated, Andrew. Everyone deserves to be treated with love and respect. But what if I promise that Mom will change? I hugged him tightly. People only change when they want to, sweetheart. No one changes just because they're told to. We held each other for a long time. Then he asked, "Can I call you?" "Of course, honey. Here's my new number." When we left the school, Mr. Thomas suggested we grab lunch before my flight back. During lunch, my phone buzzed nonstop. Patrick had learned I was in town and kept calling. I didn't answer but read a few messages. "Mom, I know you're here. The school called me. Come home. Let's talk. Don't leave again. Please." Every message only proved he still didn't understand that the problem wasn't about another chance. It was about respect. That afternoon, Mr. Thomas drove me to the airport. I felt proud of myself for doing the right thing, going for Andrew, explaining everything to him, and leaving without getting pulled back. But Patrick wasn't ready to give up. As I approached the boarding gate, I saw him. Patrick stood there, his hand gripping Andrew's. The boy ran toward me, tears streaming down his face. "Grandma, please don't go." Patrick followed, eyes red, playing the perfect emotional scene for a public place like an airport. "Mom, please. Andrew needs you. I need you too." "Patrick," I said calmly but firmly, "this is an airport. I'm not going to make a scene. People are watching. Then come home. Let's talk like a family." "Patrick, I'm not saying another word until you truly understand what you've done wrong. I already apologized. What more do you want from me?" "I don't want an apology. I want real change." "How can I change if you won't give me a chance?" The same old circle. The same manipulation, years in the making. "Patrick, for 3 years I gave you a chance every single day. When you shouted at me, and I acted like nothing happened. When you disrespected me, and I stayed silent. When you borrowed money knowing you'd never pay it back. You've used up every chance you had." Andrew looked between us, visibly worried but not fully understanding. "Look at what you're doing to Andrew," Patrick said, trying one last tactic. "Look at what you've done all these years," I replied. "You've dragged him into adult conflicts. You're using him to manipulate me right here, right now." Patrick froze. Andrew tugged at my sleeve. "Grandma, can I go with you?" That small question broke my heart. My grandson was seeking stability his mother couldn't provide. "Andrew, my love." I knelt down to his level. "You need to stay with your mom, that's your home. But I promise, whenever you need me, I'll always be here. Do you believe me?" "I do." I hugged him tightly. "Be good, study hard. And remember, Grandma loves you more than anything." When I stood up, Patrick's face was red with anger. "This isn't over, Nancy." "You're right," I said with a calm smile. "It's not over, and it'll only get worse if you refuse to learn the lesson." On the flight back to the Taxo, California, I thought about everything. Seeing Andrew made me even more certain I had done the right thing. The boy needed to know there are adults in this world who value self-respect, who won't tolerate mistreatment, and who make hard decisions when necessary. If I went back and became that submissive grandmother again, I'd be teaching him that love means enduring humiliation. I wanted him to learn that loving yourself is just as important as loving others. When I returned to Rose's home, She was waiting with a warm dinner. How did it go? Hard, but necessary. I saw Andrew. I made sure he knew it wasn't his fault, and I realized Patrick hasn't changed. And you? How do you feel? Relieved. That night I slept deeply, knowing I had done the right thing for Andrew and for myself. The next morning, I finally did something I had postponed for too long. I called my old friends. The first was Emily from Ohio. When she heard my story, she sighed. "Nancy, you're so brave. I've been putting up with my son's disrespect for years. I don't know why I'm so afraid of being alone." "Emily," I said softly, "being alone isn't the worst thing. The worst is living with people who don't value you." I told her about my work at the shop, the independence I'd found, the peace I was finally feeling. "You've really made me think, Nancy," she said. On Monday morning, a new customer came into the store, someone I'll never forget. She was around 70, elegant but with sadness in her eyes. "I'm looking for clothes to wear at a nursing home," she said tiredly. "My son says I can't live alone anymore." Her words sent chills down my spine because they reminded me of myself just months before. "Do you really want to go there?" "Of course not, but he says it's what's best for me." "And what do you think?" "I think he wants my house." We talked all morning. Her name was Margaret. Her story mirrored mind control, manipulation, and deceit disguised as care. "Margaret," I said, "you're fully capable. You have money, so why do what he wants instead of what you want?" She fell silent. When she left, she didn't buy nursing home clothes. She bought a beautiful dress to think things over. That afternoon, Rose said something that stunned me. "Nancy, I want you to be my partner. Let's expand the shop. You're better at this than anyone I've ever worked with." I was so moved I could barely speak. "Partner? Me? Yes. You have something money can't buy: experience, empathy, and the power to make other women see their worth." That night I stayed up thinking. At 67, I had the chance to become a business owner, independent, building something of my own, something I'd never even dared to dream of because I had spent my whole life living for others. On Wednesday, while I was arranging merchandise, my phone rang. It was Andrew calling from school. "Grandma, are you still going to see me?" "Who told you otherwise, sweetheart?" Mom said, "Because you don't want to come home, you don't want me either." I gripped the phone tightly. "Andrew, that's completely wrong. I always want to see you. I even want you to come here for the summer." "Really, Grandma? Really? But you'll have to ask your mom for permission." He shouted with joy and hung up. Just a few minutes later, Patrick called, his voice full of anger. "How dare you put those ridiculous ideas in Andrew's head?" "What ridiculous ideas?" "I just told him he could visit his grandmother. I'm not crazy enough to let you take my son anywhere." "I'm not taking him anywhere. It's just a little vacation with his grandma, like everyone else does." "You're not like other grandmas. You abandoned your family." "Patrick, I didn't abandon anyone. I protected myself from an abusive son. Keep playing the victim. I don't have to play anything. We both know why I left." He hung up, but that evening, Andrew called again, his voice trembling. "Mom said you're dangerous. Is that true? What do you think, sweetheart?" "I think you're the best person in the world." "Good. Then believe what you know is true." That call confirmed something important. Andrew was starting to tell right from wrong, truth from lies. That's a life skill he would need. On Friday, I gave Rose my answer. I agreed to become her partner. We signed the paperwork, and from that day on, I was officially co-owner of Elegant and Timeless. My name appeared on the business documents not as a dependent, but as a builder. That night, Rose handed me a small box containing my new business cards. Nancy Harris, image consultant and co-founder. Seeing my name printed like that brought tears of joy to my eyes. From then on, I worked with all my heart. Every client I helped was a chance to prove that mature women still hold tremendous value. One afternoon, a woman told me her family was forcing her to sell her house and move in with her daughter, who didn't truly care for her. "Do you actually want to sell it?" I asked. "No. It's the place I love most. But they say it's for the best. And who do you think has the right to decide what's best for you?" My question left her speechless. That weekend, I received a call that moved me to tears. It was Margaret. "Nancy, I told my son, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in my own home. He's angry, but he can't force me. And you know what? I feel lighter, free. Because of our talk." I ended the call with pride swelling in my chest. The pain I once endured had turned into strength I could share with others. That evening, while having dinner with Rose, I looked back at the past 3 months. 3 months ago, I was a woman crushed inside her own home. Now, I was a businesswoman with new friends, new goals, and most importantly, a newfound respect for myself. "Rose," I said, "I think I've found my true purpose, helping women like me rediscover their worth." Rose smiled. "I believe you. And I think this is just the beginning." 3 months after becoming co-owner of Elegant and Timeless, I received a call that changed everything. My attorney, Mr. Ramirez, spoke with more seriousness than usual. "Mrs. Harris, Patrick just filed a lawsuit trying to overturn the sale of your house." My heart raced. "Does he even have the right to do that?" "He claims you were unduly influenced when you signed the papers, but there's no legal basis. However, there's something more serious. Patrick lost his job 2 weeks ago and is in a financial crisis. The lawsuit is just an act of desperation." The news surprised me, but it didn't hurt the way I thought it would. What I felt was a strange mix of pity, confirmation that leaving had been the right choice. That afternoon, while helping a new client, my phone buzzed repeatedly. An unknown number. I answered, and a voice made my blood run cold. "Mrs. Harris." "Yes, who's speaking?" "This is Lisa. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to meet with you right away." "Why? Is something wrong with Andrew?" "No, but in a way, yes. It's hard to explain. Can we talk in person? I'm in California." "You're here?" "I came to see you. You need to know the truth about Patrick and Andrew." That afternoon, we met at a quiet cafe downtown. Lisa sat down looking tired and serious. "Mrs. Nancy, what I'm about to tell you isn't easy to hear." "Go on, Lisa. Nothing can surprise me anymore. Patrick is completely broke. He lost his job because he kept showing up late. He spent all his savings on useless things and now owes 3 months of rent." I sighed. I had suspected it, but hearing it from someone else still made my chest tighten. "And Andrew, that's the real concern," Lisa continued. "Patrick's been telling everyone that you abandoned the family out of selfishness, that you don't love your grandson anymore. Andrew hears 2 different stories, one from Patrick, one from his calls with you. He's confused. Lisa held back tears. Last week I visited. Andrew was doing homework alone while Patrick argued with the landlord. The boy asked me if you stopped loving him because he's a burden. My eyes burned. What did you tell him? I told him the truth, that you love him more than anything, but you left because Patrick treated you terribly. Do you know what he said? What? He said he knows. He said he always felt sad when Patrick yelled at you, but he didn't know what to do. I covered my mouth, choking on tears. Lisa, why are you telling me this? Because Patrick asked me to convince you to come back. But after seeing the truth, I realized you deserve to know everything before deciding. And the truth is, Patrick hasn't changed, ma'am. He still blames everyone but himself. He's using Andrew as leverage to make you return. Lisa's words weren't new, but hearing them from an outsider made everything painfully clear. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rose noticed my unease and sat beside me. Nancy, what are you going to do? I don't know. I can't go back to living with Patrick. But I can't leave Andrew to suffer either. What if there's a third option? Rose asked. What do you mean? What if Andrew came to live with you here? A healthy environment, a fresh start. The thought filled me with both hope and fear. Would Patrick ever agree to that? If he's broke and can't care for Andrew, you might be his only reasonable choice. The next day, I called attorney Ramirez. If Patrick can't provide for Andrew, could I apply for temporary custody? Yes, he said. If you can prove that his current environment harms his emotional well-being, the court may grant you temporary custody. Patrick can contest it, but if you're stable and he's not, you stand a strong chance. A spark of hope began to take shape inside me. That afternoon, Patrick called. His voice was trembling, weak, different. Mom, I need to talk. I'm listening. I'm in serious trouble. They're about to evict me. I have no money. I don't know what to do with Andrew. And why are you calling me? I asked slowly. I thought I was just a useless old woman you wanted gone. Mom, I'm sorry. You treated me horribly for years. You took my money. You tried to take my house. You humiliated me in front of my own grandson. Silence on the other end. Mom, I don't even know how to apologize enough. Apologies aren't words. They're actions. Mom, I've thought a lot. I know I've been a terrible son. I was jealous because my life was falling apart. I blamed you to make myself feel less like a failure. Patrick's voice wasn't manipulative, it was genuine. What do you want from me? I asked, though I already knew. I want you to help Andrew. He's not at fault. Could you let him live with you for a while? I can't take care of him anymore. I closed my eyes, tears falling not for Patrick, but for the thought that Andrew might finally have a real home. Patrick, if I do this, I need 3 things, I said firmly. First, this doesn't erase your mistakes. Second, if Andrew comes to live with me, he follows my rules, not yours. Third, you must truly change, not promise, and then forget. I understand. And I agree. Are you sure? Andrew isn't a possession to hand off. Are you agreeing because you love him, or because you want to ease your burden? Because I love him, Patrick said quietly, for once without arguing. And because I know he'll be safer with you than with me. 2 days later, Patrick and Andrew arrived in California by bus. I saw Andrew step off first, looking calmer than before. Patrick looked exhausted, pale, with dark circles under his eyes from sleepless nights. When we hugged, it felt completely different. There was no tension, no defiance, just two people too tired to keep fighting old battles. Rose welcomed them warmly. She had prepared a spare room for Patrick and bought new toys for Andrew. During dinner, I watched them closely. Patrick treated Andrew more gently than before, less impatient, more attentive, more willing to listen. "Grandma," Andrew asked, "can I really live with you?" "Do you want to, sweetheart?" "Yes, but I worry about Dad being alone." Patrick gave a sad smile. "Andrew, I'll be fine. I need to fix my life. While I do that, staying with Grandma will be better for you. But you promise you'll fix it, right?" "This time, I really promise," Patrick said slowly. That night, after Andrew went to bed, Patrick and I talked for a long time. "Mom, I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. I just want you to know I'm going to try to change. Forgiveness takes time," I said. "What are you planning to do?" "I've applied for a few jobs, and I'm going to see a therapist. I want to understand why I became someone even I can't stand." I believed Patrick truly wanted to make things right, and for the first time in so long, I felt the future might actually be good, not because Patrick was changing, but because Andrew would finally grow up in a kind environment, and because I had found myself again. As time went by, I noticed my life changing day by day. But it wasn't until Patrick told me about the third part of his plan to make amends that I realized I was standing at a turning point. "Nancy," Patrick said, "I'm going to pay off all my debts, including the money I took from you. And, if you'll let me, I want to earn my place back in this family. Not like before, when I only demanded things, but as a son who truly respects and values his mother." His words made my heart tremble, as if I were holding the little boy he once was, but I kept myself steady. I had learned that beautiful words alone were never enough to guarantee change. "Patrick," I said softly, "I'm glad to hear that, but to trust you again, I'll need time and clear actions." "I understand, and I won't rush it. If it takes years for you to believe in me again, I'll accept that." I looked him in the eyes. "And what if I never fully get that trust back?" Patrick swallowed hard. "Then, at least I'll know I tried to make things right, and Andrew will grow up in a healthy home with you." The following days were filled with emotion. Patrick and Andrew stayed with me for a week. They saw me go to work at the boutique, saw what peace looked like in a house without shouting. Patrick took initiative, washing dishes, cleaning, taking Andrew to the park. Maybe he was trying to prove he truly wanted to change. "Mom," Patrick said one evening while we prepared dinner, "I never realized how much you did around the house. I used to think things just happened on their own." Andrew, meanwhile, blended into San Diego as if he'd always belonged there. He loved the room I'd prepared, adored Rose's little garden, and quickly made friends with the neighborhood kids. One afternoon, while playing outside, he asked, "Grandma, how come no one yells here?" "Because here, everyone talks to each other with respect, my love. I really like it here." That night, as I tucked him into bed, he asked in a tiny voice that cut straight through my heart, "Grandma, why did Mom used to yell at you?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Sometimes adults make very big mistakes." "Does she still yell now?" "I hope not, dear." On the last day of their visit, Patrick said something I never expected to hear. "Mom, I think Andrew should stay with you. Permanently." "Are you sure?" "Yes. I've never seen him this happy. Here, he has stability, peace, and real love. I'm learning how to be a father again, but Andrew, He can't wait for me to figure it out. What will you do? I'm going back to Los Angeles to find a job, get my life together, and keep going to therapy. When I truly change, when I become someone Andrew can be proud of, then we can talk again. That afternoon, we filled out the paperwork for Andrew to stay with me. Patrick signed everything without hesitation, no tears, no drama, no control. "Mom," he said as he signed, "thank you for saving my son from my mistakes." "Patrick," I replied, "I didn't save Andrew from you. I just gave him a chance to grow up in a stable environment." "There's a big difference." Patrick lowered his head. "As always, you're right." When he boarded the bus back to Los Angeles, we both cried, but our tears were different. Mine were of hope. His were of determination. The first months with Andrew were wonderful. I enrolled him in a good school near the boutique so I could pick him up every afternoon. We did homework together, cooked, watched movies, walked in the park. On weekends, we explored the city, visited museums, and went to events with Rose. It was the kind of family life I had always dreamed of, but never experienced when Patrick was young because I had been working non-stop. Patrick kept his word. He called every week with updates. He got a job at a medical clinic, attended therapy regularly, and moved into a small but tidy apartment. Most importantly, he no longer called to complain or demand anything. He asked about me, about Andrew, and shared positive news. "Mom," Patrick said one day, "therapy helped me realize how unfairly I was angry with you all those years. I blamed you for my failed marriage, for money problems, for everything bad in my life. And now I know you were the only one who ever stood by me. I confused unconditional love with an obligation to tolerate me. Those words healed wounds I had carried for years. They didn't erase the pain, but they gave me hope for a better future between us." 6 months later, Patrick came to visit on his birthday. The man who stepped off that bus was a completely different Patrick, healthier, lighter, neatly dressed, with calm eyes. Andrew hugged his father tightly. "Dad, you look great." "That's because I'm happy to see you, sweetheart." During the visit, Patrick behaved like the son I had always wished for, helping around the house, playing with Andrew, talking to me without judgment or complaints. One night, after putting Andrew to bed, he sat beside me. "Mom," he said, "I want to apologize, truly apologize for everything." "Patrick, let me finish. I disrespected you, took your money, humiliated you, treated you like a maid. I once planned to take your house and put you in a nursing home. There's no excuse for any of that. So why apologize now? Because now I understand what I did. Therapy made me see that it wasn't just rudeness, it was abuse. I need you to know I take full responsibility. I'm not asking for forgiveness or for things to go back to the way they were. I just want you to know I truly regret it, and I'll spend the rest of my life being better." I hugged my son without any barriers. In my arms was a grown, humble, healing Patrick. That night, lying in bed, I thought about how far I'd come. A year earlier, I had been humiliated and thrown out of my own home. Now, I was an independent woman, a successful business owner, a happy grandmother. I had lost a house, but gained a life. I had lost a toxic son, but found the one who was learning to heal. Most importantly, I had taught Andrew that love does not mean enduring pain, that walking away from what hurts you is an act of strength. 2 years later, my life in San Diego had become everything I'd dreamed of, but never dared imagine. Elegant and Timeless had opened 3 more branches. Our mentorship program for older women was so successful we had a 2-month waiting list. Every morning, I woke up feeling purposeful, no longer trembling like someone walking on eggshells. Andrew, now 11 years old, was a completely different child, confident, cheerful, polite, excelling in school, surrounded by friends. Watching him grow up in peace confirmed that every decision I had made was right. One April morning, while I was watering the flower trellises in the yard, a letter arrived. My hands trembled as I opened it. The San Diego Chamber of Commerce announced that Elegant and Timeless had been chosen as Outstanding Business of the Year for supporting older women. I screamed for Rose. "We have to celebrate, Nancy. This is huge." That afternoon, as we prepared dinner to celebrate, I realized I had found not just a new life but my true purpose. Andrew burst through the door, backpack bouncing behind him, face glowing. "Grandma, my project about women entrepreneurs won first place." He had chosen me as his subject. "Are you proud of your grandma?" I asked. "So proud." I told all my friends my grandma's a famous businesswoman. I hugged him tightly, my heart overflowing with pure joy, the joy of being seen, understood, and loved by the one who knew me best. That night, sitting outside with a cup of hot tea, I looked up at the stars. 3 years had passed since Patrick humiliated me and threw me out of my home. 3 years since I chose to walk away, to choose dignity, to choose freedom. 3 years to rebuild my life, rediscover myself, raise Andrew, and help dozens of women stand back up. And I knew one thing for sure: Patrick had kept his word. For the past 2 years, he had visited Andrew every 3 months, just as he promised. The most important thing was that my son learned how to be a father without trying to control his child, to love without possession, to be present without overstepping. "Mom," Patrick said during his last visit, "thank you for teaching me that sometimes loving someone means letting them walk the path they need to walk." One afternoon in May, while I was consulting a new client at the boutique, a woman walked in who immediately reminded me of myself 3 years earlier. She looked to be around 65, well-dressed but carrying the defeated expression of someone who had forgotten her own worth. Her shoulders drooped, and her voice was so soft it sounded like she was apologizing for existing. "I'd like to find something elegant but not too expensive," she said quietly. "I'd be happy to help." "What's the occasion?" I asked, using the gentle tone I always reserved for women who were hurting. "My children are moving me into a nursing home. They want me to look presentable for the interview there." Her words pulled me straight back into the past. "Do you actually want to go to a nursing home?" I asked directly. "Of course not, but they say I can't live alone anymore, that I've become a burden." "And what do you think?" "I think they want to sell my house and split the money, but if I say that, they call me a paranoid old woman." I invited her to sit in the small consultation corner Rose and I had designed for situations just like this. "What's your name?" "Carol." "Carol, are you still of sound mind?" "Completely." "Do you have your own finances?" "Yes. I have a pension and savings." "Then why do you have to do what your children want instead of what you want?" We talked for 2 hours. Carol's story was like looking into a mirror, adult children manipulating their parents, disguising control as concern, pressuring elders to live according to their will. But I also saw in Carol something I had once carried myself, a small but powerful spark that reignites when someone rediscovers their strength. "Carol," I said, "do you know what you really need?" "What?" "A lawyer, not a new dress. I gave her the number of Attorney Miller, who now specialized in elder financial abuse cases. And Carol, one more thing. You're not crazy, not paranoid, and certainly not a burden. You're a smart woman being taken advantage of by the people who should be protecting you. 2 weeks later, Carol came back to the boutique, completely transformed. She walked with her head held high, her voice clear, her eyes shining. "Nancy, I have to tell you what happened. I took your advice and hired a lawyer. Turns out my kids had met with a real estate agent behind my back to appraise my house." "What did you do?" "I told them I knew everything. I changed my will, and if they kept pushing me, they wouldn't get a single cent." "How did they react?" "First they got angry, then said I was sick, then begged me to reconsider. But I stood firm. In the end, they had to accept that I'll live in my own home for as long as I choose." Stories like Carol's became more common in my new life. Through the boutique, I met countless older women suffering from subtle emotional or financial abuse by their children. I realized it happened far more often than people were willing to admit. So Rose and I decided to expand our business model. Beyond selling clothes, we began hosting self-esteem workshops, seminars on elder rights, and support groups for women every Tuesday evening. We called this program Women with Purpose, and it became a refuge for those who needed to reclaim their self-worth after years of mistreatment. One afternoon in June, as I was leading a group session, a young woman walked in. She was about 35, well-dressed but visibly anxious. She sat quietly at the back, taking notes without saying a word. After the session ended, she approached me, tears filling her eyes. "Miss Nancy, may I talk to you privately?" I nodded and led her to my office. She broke down crying. I think I'm the kind of daughter you just talked about. I think I've been treating my mother badly without realizing it." Her name was Anna, and her story mirrored Patrick's from 3 years ago. "My mom's been living with me since my dad died 2 years ago. At first, it was supposed to be temporary, but then I started treating her terribly. I yelled, ignored her, made her feel useless." "Why do you think you did that?" "Because my life's been falling apart. I got divorced, money's tight, and it's easier to take it out on her than to face my problems." "How does your mother feel?" "Sad, so sad. Yesterday I saw her crying in the kitchen, but she said it was nothing. We talked for an hour. I shared my own story not to judge, but to help her stop before it was too late." "Anna, your mother won't live forever. When she's gone, you'll have to live with the weight of this for the rest of your life. Do you think I can still make it right?" "Yes, but you have to truly change. Not just say you will. You need to deal with your own problems, respect your mother, and most of all, stop blaming her." Anna left with a list of therapists and promised to come back in a month. A month later, she returned with a well-dressed woman in her 70s, smiling warmly. "Miss Nancy, this is my mother, Mrs. Hope. She wanted to thank you in person." Hope hugged me and burst into tears. "You have no idea how much she's changed. She doesn't yell anymore. She asks for my opinion. She treats me kindly, as if I have my daughter back." Again. Anna had kept her promise. She went to therapy, treated her mother with respect, and stopped blaming the woman who gave her life. "Miss Nancy," Anna said, "you saved me from becoming someone I never wanted to be." Stories like theirs became the most beautiful part of my new life. Every woman I helped reclaim her dignity, every child who realized their behavior before it was too late, Every family that avoided breaking apart, each one reminded me that my pain years ago had not been in vain. I had endured, learned, and grown so I could reach out to other women who had lost their way. Life had turned my bitter experience into a gift of healing for those who needed to know they weren't alone, that they were worthy of respect. That August, I received a phone call that filled my heart with joy. It was Carol, the woman I'd met in my early days at the boutique, the one who had come looking for clothes to enter a nursing home. "Nancy, I have news," she said. "My son officially apologized for trying to force me to sell my house. He's in family therapy now, and we're rebuilding our relationship." "How do you feel about that?" I asked. "Free, respected, valued. My son talks to me like an adult now, not like a child." "So what have you learned from all this?" "That I have to protect myself. No one can do it for me." "And you were right. Love doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment." One September afternoon, as Andrew was doing his homework at the kitchen table, he asked me something that made me pause. "Grandma, have you forgiven my mom?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask, honey?" "Because at school, we're learning about forgiveness. And I wanted to know if you've forgiven what happened." I sat beside him, choosing my words carefully. "Andrew, forgiveness is complicated. It's not like in the movies where someone says sorry and everything goes back to normal. So you haven't forgiven her? Forgiveness is a process. Your mom did things that hurt me deeply, but she's also worked hard to change. I'm on the path to forgiving her." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm no longer angry. I can be around your mom without feeling pain. I recognize her effort, but I don't forget what happened, and I keep boundaries to protect myself. If she ever mistreats me again, I'll have to make another hard decision, but I hope that never happens." "Grandma, I'm proud of you." "Why, sweetheart?" "Because you're strong. You don't let anyone treat you badly. You taught me to respect myself." His words made me realize that the most important lesson I had passed on to Andrew wasn't about forgiveness, it was about self-worth. In October, I received an invitation that moved me deeply. The University of San Diego asked me to speak to business students about starting a company later in life. It was recognition that my life story could inspire others. On the day of the lecture, the hall was full of young students in their 20s, listening closely as I shared my journey, how I started a business at 67 after a painful family crisis. "Mrs. Harris," one student asked, "what would you say to an older woman who's being mistreated at home and is afraid to stand up for herself?" "I'd tell her that fear is normal, but living forever in fear is worse than facing change. She deserves respect, she has choices, and it's never too late to start again." "And what would you say to children who mistreat their parents without realizing it?" "I'd tell them to open their eyes before it's too late. Parents won't be here forever. When they're gone, all that's left is regret for how badly they were treated." After the talk, many students approached me to share stories about their families, grandparents neglected, parents disrespected. I realized my story had touched them, and I hoped it might help some of them change the way they treat their elders. In November, Patrick came to celebrate Andrew's birthday. As always, he arrived on time, brought a thoughtful gift, helped with the party, and respected both my house and its rules. I watched how he interacted with Andrew, present, caring, loving, but no longer controlling or desperate. He had finally learned what it truly means to be a father. That night, after putting Andrew to bed, Patrick said to me, "Mom, every day I'm grateful for the decision you made 3 years ago. Why is that? Because you forced me to grow up. You made me face my own problems instead of blaming others. You pushed me to become the person Andrew needed me to be. Do you really think I had to leave for you to realize that? To be honest, yes. I was too comfortable taking my anger out on you, believing you'd tolerate it no matter what. If you hadn't set such firm boundaries, I never would have changed. And you don't resent me for that? No. I only resent myself for taking so long to see how badly I treated you. I regret that you had to reach that breaking point before I finally woke up. That was the first time Patrick ever called his behavior abuse. And in that moment, I knew he truly understood the consequences of his actions. In December, as we decorated the house for Christmas, Andrew asked a question that filled my eyes with tears of joy. "Grandma, can I invite my friends to our Christmas party? I want them to meet the best grandma in all of San Diego." That simple sentence was proof of everything. I had built a home filled with love, respect, and peace. "Of course, sweetheart. This is your home just as much as it's mine." The party was wonderful. 15 children and their parents came, filling the house with warmth and laughter. Many thanked me for my hospitality, but one mother said something that touched me deeply. "Mrs. Nancy, my son told me he wishes his grandma were as kind as you." Her words told me I had achieved something far greater than professional success. I had become a living example of self-respect and strength for a new generation. On New Year's Eve, as Patrick, Andrew, and I shared a quiet dinner, I looked back on the past 3 years. I had lost a house but found a home. I had lost the son who once mistreated me but found the son who was learning to heal. I had given up the false comfort of silent endurance, but I had gained the true peace that comes from self-respect. And above all, I had learned one essential truth. It's never too late to start over, to stand up for yourself, to demand the respect you deserve. If you're in a difficult situation with your family, I hope my story gives you the strength to look at everything with kindness toward yourself. Do you believe that sometimes we must step out of our pain to rediscover peace? Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love in order to love them in a healthier way? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story, because maybe your experience could help someone who's struggling the same way I once was. And if you want to keep walking with me through new journeys and lessons, stay with the channel so you won't miss the stories to come. Together, we're building a small, peaceful corner of the world, one where everyone deserves to be heard, understood, and free to be themselves.